Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by our friend and founder of Vanguard SMP, Dennis Romero, hailing live. Not sure what state he's in today. Probably he's in Florida, maybe Orlando. We'll find out because he's all over the world. And of course, he's in charge of helping so many with scalp micropigmentation, which is a form of, well, it's a cosmetic tattoo that's helping alleviate bald spots, people with hair loss, people with scars. He's really helping people, like mimicking hair follicles and so much more. So Dennis, let me have you say hello. And where are you hailing from today?
I am in Orlando, Florida, and I am the owner of Vanguard SMP, and we are a scalp micropigmentation business that specializes in hair loss solution.
Beautiful. Well, pleasure to have you back here. For those that don't know, you also have offices where and opening where?
We have Silver Springs, Maryland. We have Vegas. We have Los Gatos. We have Tampa, and hopefully somewhere in South Florida, maybe like Lauderdale.
Amazing. Well, we're excited you're back with us. We've gotten to know you on a personal level the past few months, and we're going to continue down this path and talk more about your artistry, your team, and of course, the work that you do. To start off today, did you want to share a story that, about one of your clients or two, about maybe, how it was a little challenging and how you and him or her had to navigate through this experience?
Yeah, you're always going to run into clients that pose more of a problem just because of their temperament, right? I had a woman who actually left a bad review for me in spite of me having been completely transparent and honest and what the possible outcomes of treatment could be, right? So she wanted to make it look fuller in the front. She'd been wearing a wig. The wigs from gluing it in the front had weakened the follicles and made it fall out. But she knew this, right? And 4 years later, she left me a bad review, right? And it was because, the hair had fallen out and, but that really wasn't really like our fault. We executed the treatment as it should have been done. But she was just sour because she kept using wigs that made her have further loss that then exposed the work that was supposed to be underneath that hair, right? And so I tried to meet her halfway. I tried her to come in. I was going to, try to help her, but she wasn't having it. She wanted to leave a detailed, review that was actually quite fraudulent because what she was saying was not true. And that's really hard to navigate because you want to not cross a line, right? I would never want to cross a line, but I would want to be straightforward and honest for potential clients who are reading this review to understand that, that's not how it actually went down. So in that position, I actually had to take a very firm position, and I gave her a very firm answer, right? It's like a woman getting, a breast job and not expecting gravity to ever take place, right?
Exactly.
So, it wasn't really, what I'm saying? So you have to find ways as best you can to navigate those types of people. But ultimately, I think if you have a good working relationship with most of your clients, which I do, just inherently, I like to know who they are and I draw them in. It's part of the master strategy, right? So, so that's difficult. You have to deal sometimes with people who are not necessarily all the way there, and you have to just find a way to thread the needle with them sometimes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And did you want to elaborate on any more stories? Or do you want to? Okay, go ahead.
Wonderful clients, and I've had clients that, but those are far few and in between. I've been accused of being part of the mob by a client. I wish I was kidding. I really wish I was kidding. And poisoning them through the needle, it's just, yeah. She skipped her medication that day, I think. But beyond that, most of my clients are fantastic because I've treated people from all walks of life. And I'm a sponge, right? I had a female who, she was on the male circuit, poker circuit, right? And she played professional poker. And, I just love that, she had so much spunk, and she knew she was going into an environment that was hostile, that would underestimate her because she was a female. But just her resilience, you know what I'm saying? I guess you could say I take a lot of inspiration from women. They're like my muses.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. And we got to meet one of these amazing, powerful women last week, your partner.
Yeah.
Again, I said before we were off there, she's amazing. What a little spitfire. Wow. What the stories, the two of you together on fire. I love it.
Yeah, because she's done the work. You know what I'm saying? She actually has the credentials and the receipts to basically move in any direction she wants, just based on the foundation that she's built on her knowledge of business and government contracting and all sorts of things. She's really just like she's a jack of all like master trades, you know?
Awesome. Well, you guys together are just awesome. And I'm glad I got to meet with her, speak with her, and get to know her too. There also is, you mentioned, there's artistic inspiration in a sense, right? And outside of SMP, there's some other artists, right, that may have influenced your work. And right, I mean, you guys are learning from each other at the same time. And how do you incorporate this all together and work together?
You mean like other artists that are in the industry?
Yes, yes.
Well, I'm kind of a lone wolf. I'm a very, by nature, solitary creature. I only invite very few people in. But once you're in, you're screwed. You're stuck, right? You're never going anywhere. But I take inspiration from other forms of art, right? Like for example, like I'm a very improvisational person, and I don't like to do things in the same way. I feel like I'm being stifled if I have to do the same monotonous activity over and over again. So like, I like artists like, let's say like Monet, for example, right? Monet was fantastic because like it just looked like a mangle of messed up dots when you were up close to it, right? But at a certain distance, it all comes together. And so let's say if I take inspiration from Monet, right? Like my work is very much like that because like you would, as I'm putting it together, you would not know what the outcome is actually going to look like. But I have to do I have to do it my way. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love it though. But, and everyone has their own different techniques, right? Even now the people you're training as well, everyone's an individual, right? So how does that work with you're teaching people your technique, but everyone's going to vary a little bit, right?
Yes. Okay. So when I'm teaching someone like an introduction to scalp micropigmentation, I'm very cookie cutter because it's better for them, right? Because they don't know what they're doing. So it's better that I don't go off in my wonky abstract, way of wanting to do things, and that I actually take consideration that they're new. And so I do things in a much more methodical and thought out and cookie cutter way for them to understand and to execute and for them to just have the best possible chance at being successful. So when I teach a new student, I teach them the way that most trainers teach them, right? Everything's going to have a process. You want to make impressions that are perfectly neat and that are in order and that are balanced so that it makes life easier for them, right? If someone wants to know how I personally work on a daily basis, then that's probably going to be more of a master class and someone who has experience because they already have enough experience under their belt where they will be able to digest that.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you. Do you want to talk about the dark side? There is some dark sides of scalp micropigmentation, right? And I'm sure many misconceptions. There
is because, it's changing now, right? Because there's so many good artists now that have flooded the industry that it took away sort of that tribalistic nature, male nature of it, right? Because it's predominantly, it's male dominated in numbers. And what I found was that there was some real friction within these factions and, to the point of, trying to deploy a strategic way of taking a person's business down. Right. And so I think that's a very dark side of it because there's a lot of money to be made. And where there's money, there's going to be where there's money, there's going to be that risk of having to navigate an environment that isn't always necessarily open to someone coming in and stepping on my toes and they're going to take away my revenue. So there was a lot of that going on. And I'm glad that because the numbers have increased so exponentially that it's very difficult to remain tribalistic in that way because now there's so many good people in every corner of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure does.
So they diluted that energy that was very almost confrontational and wanting to self-preserve by essentially not allowing people to grow who had the potential to be just as big as the person who was trying to protect their revenue. I just think that the work should speak for itself. And if you are a good artist and you are a professional and you deliver on that, then that's all that matters. Stop worrying about everything else. So I was never a big fan of that. And I've seen some things go down that kind of turn me off because it shouldn't be that way. Does that make sense? It shouldn't be that way. Yeah.
Got it. Well, do you want to share some of your most memorable milestones? Maybe the top few moments, along your journey of SMP that really has shaped you, changed your career, made you, the person you are.
Yeah, I mean, as far as SMP, I think the milestone would be opening the business, of course, right? That was a huge one because it took me from just working at somebody else's location to actually having my own. Even though, like, I've aged probably like 20 years on the interior, according to you, but yeah, like that was definitely a milestone because I've always kind of been an artsy fartsy person that likes to kind of like live on the margins of
Yep.
and so to come, that far away from that sort of world and into a world of structure and into a world of negotiation and all these things that go into business was a big milestone. I'd say that the second biggest milestone was actually winning Artist of the Year globally in the Bangkok event. And having the people that train me, the person that trained me, which is Fernando Cortez and John Chandler, in the audience, and having that sort of just like full circle moment of like, wow, okay, like, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was, just making those first dots. And then
Yeah.
like, now, I'm in Bangkok accepting the award along with Maeve,
Aw.
as, best in the world, which is quite, wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That is pretty amazing. It's quite wow. Awesome. We're all, you should be proud of these things. This is awesome. But there's probably, what would you share to someone who's like new in this field, right? It's got to be scary because there's going to be moments when, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, good, bad, and you're here to help shape other people too. So what advice for a new artist would you give to them?
I would say, I mean, basically, like you need to have some tough skin because it's challenging. It's a niche market, and for that reason, it's going to be very competitive, right? So what I would say is just try to ally yourself with people whom can help you and you can learn from, and try to look for people within your own circle that can supplement you in many, many different ways that you may not be aware of. But I would tell them also to be highly organized. If you are like me and a bit of a hippie and you don't want to age 20 years on the interior, then you should structure yourself because it's going to be necessary in the business world. Like, all this artsy fartsy, airy fairy stuff that I love doesn't work in that place, right? So I would just say that you should be prepared to work hard. And if you persevere, and if you're consistent, because that is the main component to being successful in business, it's your consistency. It's not always the smartest people that succeed. It's the people that stick with it on a day in, day out basis and who don't take no for an answer. Those are actually the people who succeed. And amongst them are very intelligent people, but not by default.
Yeah. Very true. All right. Well, what else did you want to share about them? Any other advice before we move on into community and collaboration?
I would say any other advice, just stay true to who you are and do it and learn, but don't be afraid to use a springboard and do it your way. Find out what works for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it your way every time, all the time.
I love it. Perfect. All right, let's move on and let's talk a little bit about the importance of community support and people backing, you up and, supporting each other all as SMP artists. Could you share some maybe collaborative experiences that really have, stood out to you?
Yeah, I think obviously the most obvious collaborative, combination would be me and Benea. I think that's just one of the things. That's something that just like the stars align just right for us to kind of work together and be as close as we are and work as well as we do in business. But it's important that you definitely not completely isolate yourself.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm kind of a lone wolf. I like that, right? I just prefer that. I like to do it my way. But at the same time, I have very key people that play very crucial roles for me, like my sister, like Benea, like John that handles my calls, and other people that in the past have helped me because nobody really gets anywhere on their own, right? Nobody really gets anywhere on their own. And I wanted to actually circle back to the first question because you had asked me about a client story, and this was one that actually blew my mind because I was working on this man in Naples, and Mick is his name, and he's very much gangster, right? He's a from Jersey. He's gangster. And but he had such a generous heart and he surprised me in such a profound way because I had to leave that space because they were selling it, right? So I could no longer lease there. The owner was changing, and the new owner didn't want to rent, didn't want to lease to anyone. So I had to find a place, and I'm having this conversation with my sister in front of him, never thinking that he's actually paying attention, right? So when it comes time to move, he says, "Hey, Dennis, I have a space that would work for you because it's very similar to this. And you can move into that space and you can use it," right? So I didn't have to look, but that wasn't really what blew my mind. What blew my mind was when he said, "And you're not going to pay me," right? So he move into his commercial space and not pay him a single dime of rent. Even as I was like, why? Why would you? In the interior, I didn't want to like be rude or seem ungracious, but in the back of my mind, I was like, why would anyone do this, right? Because we become cynical and we don't expect much out of people because normally we don't get much out of people. But like that level of generosity and then speaking to him on it and actually meeting him for dinner and asking him, I just need to know why. Why would you? We didn't know each other that well yet, right? And what he said to me was, going back to that other point, was, nobody is successful on their own, he said. I have had many people along my journey give me things and never expect anything in return. And then now it's my time to pay that forward, right? So yeah, to say that I've had some pretty like amazing clients that are just like kind and generous people is an understatement, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. All right. We have just a few minutes left. Let's move on over and talk a little bit about the future. What's happening in your field and where do you see it heading and, and changing, right? Because over the years, you told me before, I mean, things have changed, right? Obviously. The types of product you're using, the more longevity it has, but overall the technique has kind of been the same, right? Is there any changes that you're predicting in the next like 5 to 10 years that are really going to be like, wow, or are we just going to have to wait?
Right. Well, there's it's everything innovates, everything changes, evolves. I think what's going to basically continue to change is just the accuracy with which people are able to execute something that looks as real as possible. And I also think that, like I said, like the influx of so many different people in so many different countries, and the influx of women has also been really, really, really fantastic because it used to be almost like 99.9% males that worked as technicians at SMP. And I think that was some of the testy testosterone situation that was going on. You know what I'm saying? And to have females who are just as good as the guys, I think is beneficial because there's more numbers and just because females bring a different dynamic to the whole equation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we only have 2 more minutes left of the show. So how did you want to leave off?
I would just leave off with, like, since we've been talking about business, I would just tell the students again and reinforce them to seek proper training and to seek a trainer that they feel they can communicate well with, because even though we're teaching people how to make dots, it's actually, there's a lot more to it than that. And you want to be with someone whom you feel comfortable, whom you can exchange with, and whom you feel will hold your hand in the weeks coming forward. And then if you do that, that's the first step you can take to actually having a successful run at scalp micropigmentation.
Beautifully said. All right. Thank you so much, Dennis. Always a pleasure having you here.
Always. Thank you so much.
How can we reach out to you?
Vanguard SMP across all social media platforms, and www.vanguardsmp is the website. Check us out. And yeah, pull the trigger.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much. Have a great day and looking forward to our next conversation. Enjoy, everyone. Reach out. Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.